Yay! Recording! Woohoo! Hey, beautiful.
Hi.
Hi. So, today I invited Shanti because let me drop into it. Yeah, I had seen your posts, and maybe you can share a little bit about what they were about, but they touched me deeply, and I recognized so much about what you shared. So I was like, ha, this lady is on. I want to talk to her. Yeah. So maybe you can share a little bit about what you're like,
I
what's
think,
going on for you.
I think it's really interesting because I really do want to acknowledge first, thank you. Thank you for seeing it. Thank you for
Mm-hmm.
resonating with you. Thank you for
Yeah.
inviting. Um, I didn't have a reason that I shared other than I felt how odd it was that my father died a week ago, but how odd it was that we don't talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
We do, there's certain like really weird constrictive rules, like it's got to be serious. It's got to be
Yes.
uh, and what I started to discover very early on, even in the conversation where my sister told me, "Hey, Dad died," there was already laughter.
Mm-hmm.
There was already beauty. It was already there in the very
Yeah.
beginning. Even as I felt, grief work is something that it's not something that I'm unfamiliar with.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like from a scientific perspective, from a therapeutic perspective, I knew exactly what was happening to me.
Mm-hmm.
This is what's happening
Right.
in my
Right.
brain, and this is what's happening in my nervous system, and this is what's happening in my immune system. And
Nice. Nice.
here's the emotional map landscaped out, blah blah blah. But it's a completely different story
Yeah.
when you're in it, and you're not supporting it. It's a completely different thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I like everything. It was like, well, if I share everything on Facebook and in my life, then why wouldn't I share this?
Yeah.
That didn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
And I knew, like, in the very beginning when I started to share, I had like this little disclaimer, at the end, like, I'm grieving and I'm not really open for
Mm.
conversation,
Oh,
like,
wow. Yeah.
uh, but I want to share. I do think the conversation is important, but I may not be capable of like curating the conversation that might happen in the comments.
Mm-hmm.
Share with me and whatever, but
Mm-hmm.
basically I can't be expected to be normal right now because because I'm
Yeah.
not. So
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
and I also said, and I may pull away. I may like give a lot of information. It may seem like I'm really coming out, and then I may instantly pull back because that's just what grief is. It's
Mm.
something. It's a rolling thing, and it's um, the need to be very clear about my own boundaries and my own space
Mm.
is clear now, right? Like those time, that place where I would toggle and be like, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't be so clear.
Yeah.
That grief wipes that away. It's like, no,
Yes. Yeah.
grief and selfishness.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that about grief in a way and that's one of the things that I found so inspiring when you were writing about was as well as the humor that is there, like really dark humor sometimes. I recognize that myself, and I remember that I had a moment like that, and there was a dear friend of mine who was near me, and he was like, "Oh, like, you can't do that," but and the seriousness, the heaviness of grief, the perceived idea around grief that it has to be a certain way, and as you share now, that it also like for me it was the same that it in a way cleared space like it became so clear at once like how important life is and what like what the priorities are in there and
Sorry.
yeah.
Just 1 second. I'm so sorry. My husband's on a kayaking trip and he's letting me know he's not dead. Hey, baby. So that's another thing, right? My husband had this planned trip, uh,
Yeah.
kayaking trip, and kayaking is not like the safest,
Hmm.
sport.
Hmm.
I was just like, okay,
Right.
don't die. But
Right.
there's like a real desperation in there right now because of the situation.
Right.
So
Right. I get it. Yeah, I had the same thing. My father passed away, and I think a couple of months later, my mom went on a trip just to Rome,
Mm-hmm.
Like, not a place where I think, oh, there you will die, but I was like, oh my goodness, what if her plane crashes? Like, then I am like parentless. I'm way too young to be parentless. Like, and I remember that I think I said the same thing to her. Like, please don't die on me. You can't die on my on me. Yeah, yeah. And what I love so much about you in this whole process is that you share it so openly. Like, there's almost as if you don't have like. I'm not sure. Maybe there's another part to it, but you don't hold yourself back in it either. It's just like you go and you go and you name it and you flow it, and I so appreciate that. And because of that, it's so authentic and so raw. Um, and for me, it's definitely an inspiration to be also more closer to those feelings that are now also for me coming up, but
Well,
just less.
I can't tell you how many messages I've had where somebody's like, I was reading your, both publicly, people have said it publicly, and to me personally, they're like, I was reading this or I was watching this, and all of a sudden I burst into tears.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
there's there's so many unwept tears in
Right. Right.
in our DNA, in our ancestral
Yes.
lines. There's generations of unmetabolized grief.
Right.
And so lots of times when we grieve, when those of us still seen, so still in a body, grieve, we're not just grieving our own grief.
Right. Right. Yeah.
For grieving the grief of generations that could not grieve for many reasons,
Yeah.
mostly
Yeah.
because of oppression,
Yeah.
grief being oppressed, and grief being labeled a certain thing. And the word grief is very new.
Right.
It was feeling, it was called mourning before, it was not called
Yeah.
and it's like we've taken away the ability to understand, whoa, there's a portal that opens up here. Like, I feel like this is the most important thing that's ever happened to me. I don't, it's the best thing, it's the most important thing. It's like, why do we run from this? And the truth is, because grief is what shows us that we're really alive. It's the closest to being alive that we can get. And unmetabolized grief is like seeds that have not blossomed.
Yes.
They're just they've not been, because when you really feel grief, all it turns into is beauty. There's nothing but beauty about the experience. There's nothing here to run away from or to be afraid of. It's like you just open and say, here I am, and here's this grief, and I let go of all resistance. And that allowed a lot of things. Well, I knew exactly what to do, what kinds of supplements. Like, I stopped my supplement that I was doing. I trained my body every day, and I just went to the supplements I knew would support my system. For me, I don't know if it would be for anybody else. I don't give a crap. I offer that, but you have to know for yourself, like, what is that is working for you. And knowing, I'm not hungry. This is normal. So I'm not stressed out about it. If I lose 10 pounds, who the fuck cares? That's just part of the process. I have a rash. I have this distended belly. I have these things happening because grief is happening in my body. It's metabolizing itself. It's not a problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not an issue that I need to fix.
Yeah.
And so, and I am actively, intentionally opening the portal, like allowing the portal to be open. I'm intentionally creating the space around that with rituals, things that I put into place, an altar for my dad, and talking to him and making him coffee and giving him bacon, and like just these things. And my kids watch this and they're like, whoa, this is fascinating. Like this isn't, we don't have a religion. I'm not, my spirituality is shamanistic in nature. So it's earthy, embodied spirituality. Anything that goes like up in here will start to irritate my system for a while, because it's not what's real. What's real to me is where we're connected. I'm connected to the unseen as much as I'm connected to the seen.
Yeah. Beautiful.
But there's no hierarchy. Oh, well, there is a hierarchy. I'm at the very bottom. But not like in a way that, like, I abase myself or something.
Yes.
But just that my life exists because of the ancestors that came before me, and the ancestors that came after me, because of the water and the plants and the animals. Like, I would not be here if it wasn't for all of those things. And so it's very real understanding that, like, I need to offer my gratitude, and we cannot truly, authentically, and honestly offer gratitude to life. We do not grieve. and that's the thing too. I think people like when you touch real beauty, there's grief in it. Otherwise, it's not it can't be beautiful to you. Like you could take like something very simple, like a loved one, a partner, or a child, or a parent, and sometimes you get this sense of like, where you love them beyond words, and it's like you want to grab on to that moment, because in that beauty is the knowing that it's not going to last.
I have to like interrupt you a tiny bit because I love to hear you, and I kind of, sometimes the sound is like a little bit soft and breaking up.
Let's fix it.
Yes. I want to hear you really well.
Okay, so that happens.
Yay, that's better. Great. So the last thing that you shared, we were talking about your children and your husband.
Or anything. It could be like a baby animal. You know, that feeling like you just want to squeeze it. You just squeeze it. That's the grief and the beauty.
Yes.
It's this. You cannot celebrate life without grief.
Yeah.
It's just
go
ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. No. I so recognize it as well as that. How do you say that? It's almost as if you have like as if there's a little glass wall between you and the world. So you see that little, like that animal and think, oh, this is so gorgeous. And I want to like squeeze it and hug it. And I want to do this. And instead, a lot of times we do, oh, that's cute.
There you go. Yes. Unmetabolized grief.
Right. Yeah.
Because God forbid we show on our faces and in our being what matters to us.
Right.
That's really what you're showing when you openly grieve, and the the ugly face that you make. I don't think it's ugly. I never have. I think it's beautiful. But most people are like, oh God, I don't want to ugly cry. Or even the languaging we use around it. It's primal.
Right, and in a way, it is something messy. It is not. It's not pretty. That's it. It's not ugly.
No, it's brutally
it's
beautiful.
Also not.
It's brutally
beautiful. It's raw. It's like like that. Yeah.
And it's real.
Yes. Yeah.
Going, oh yeah, that's cute. That's not real.
Yeah.
There's nothing real about that.
Yeah.
It's like, come on. Right. Like, it's like, I want to live. And so for me, this initiation is bringing me back much deeper into kind of like a rewilding, to be a wild human. Right.
Oh, I love that you say it that way. It's so beautiful.
To be a wild human who feels it all, like out loud. I don't have to hide my grief. Why? Well, that makes no sense. And it's not healthy.
No. That's what I recognized myself when I was in that time. I didn't have that full, I think partially because I was in an age that I was still searching for this. Like I was like, am I allowed to do but the whole world says something different. So I was really in that age, like I was 21, 20. And I just started living on myself. So I was also like, there was a lot of layers in this.
I don't think that that's the problem. I think it's that the Umwelt, the world, I spent a long time cultivating my life so that I can be wild in it. Right? Nice. And so...
yes, and I think that's exactly what I just started to do. And I didn't have the full
support.
Courage. Yes.
Well, no, it's not here. This is where we get really mixed up. You don't need the courage. You need the support. You need to know that you can fall the fuck apart, messy on the floor, crying like a freak. And the people around you are going to go, I've got you. Let this out. Grief is not a solitary thing. It is. Grief is what makes us care. It is. We are meant to grieve because it makes us care about each other. And we're so metabolized that somebody sees grief and runs away.
Yes.
Instead of
for me, it resulted in building up that grief, building it up, and then I'd be in a group, and I started to share because I had to I had to share something around it, and then I would spill over massively, and then I would see everybody do, or like that, and that would make me even more so locked in the feeling of
exactly, because we're all domesticated in a way, right?
Yeah, I love the way that you say that grief is a together thing. it's definitely, I believe
And
that.
I mean, it's why like what I'm sharing is having the effect that it's having on other people, strangers even, all over the world, watching read my words and burst into tears. And the other thing too that we have around grief is like, well, I can't bug you. And there are certain, those boundaries, I felt them in the beginning. Like, whoa, that's part of our domestication as well, right? We've been domesticated with this idea that we need boundaries and we need singularity and we need individuality. We've lost this connection to understanding that no matter how much we think we're individual, we are a collective. We belong to each other. Every culture, every race, every plant, every animal, the planet, like we belong to each other. This is not a singular thing. And grief is the thing that makes us realize that more than anything else. And so the sharing of grief, like somebody can say, well, my dog died or my mom died 5 years ago and I didn't metabolize my grief. And so I share my grief. That portal opens again. And we can all step into that space and grieve what we need to grieve.
Right.
And there's no more healing needed.
Right. Yeah. And I also recognize that, like, I had a distorted image of grief. I was like, oh, you can grieve when somebody dies. Then it's okay to grieve. But there's like tons of ways to grieve. There's tons of reasons to grieve as well.
Anything that's a loss, something that
Exactly.
mattered to you,
right.
that you lose, that you loved and you cared about. That's grief.
Yeah, and that can be a dream. It can be a loss of like a body part, or but it can be anything. Yeah. Like
an animal, a relationship, a plant, anything that it's like, and grief shows us what matters. It's like that, that wall that falls away and priorities just reassert themselves. Cause it's like, prior to my dad dying, there was a lot of weird little things happening. It was like, that all became completely irrelevant. Completely irrelevant. And I was starting to enter conversations, important conversations, about porn and about race and about activism and things like that. And this was just like, this is where your center is and this is where your voice is. It's not to be distracted in those things. Not that those are distracting, but they're not my thing. I'm willing to go into any conversation. I'm willing to have any of those conversations, but the clarity of it is I'm not willing to have conversations anymore that are not respectful at all, ever again for the rest of my life. So, like, I'm not going to be disrespectful. That I've carried that for a long time, but that I know that, but I'm also not going to enter into conversations that are not respectful.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Because we can have all the conversations we need to have about all the things on the planet, so long as you can look across and say, we belong to each other. And grief tells you that, like, clearer than anything else. It's like, I can honor you. We didn't never have to agree. We can agree. We can be on so many different ideologies or whatever, and that doesn't mean shit. I can still treat you with respect. I can even not like you. I don't like your personality, whatever. But if you, as my enemy or whatever, come to me and you bring me my grief, you bring me your grief, it just, something happens and this grief opens up. I have to listen. Right? And we've also got grief mixed up with like pity. So there's the where we try to use it to sometimes grief is the very first time somebody's really truly allowing themselves the recognition of their emotional experience. And so it becomes this thing that we hold on and try to get attention with, or it's something that we use as an excuse to like lose our shit and be really nasty. That's not grief. Grief is this beautiful thing that would not harm anyone. It might scream out all the things you're not supposed to say. All the horrible, nasty things might come out, but it's not meant as harm. It's just meant as like, I need to express this. And if you let that happen, beauty follows immediately. Immediately, beauty opens up. It's like all the crap you were ever holding, whether you're aware of it or not, disappears. When you allow the grief to come, it disappears completely. And all the patterns that you inherited also start to unravel. If you let them. Like if you don't hold on to it, right? If you let that. And we've been disconnected from our ancestors. My dad dying has really shown me that. It's like, when you understand, when you get that you have your ancestor, you don't just have your bloodline, but like your ancestors are at your back, supporting you, wanting you to do well, wanting to help you to unravel and to make things right that have been wronged.
Absolutely.
Right? Like to correct the human misunderstandings that they were part of.
Yeah.
Not being in the unseen, they don't have the patterns anymore. They have no more questions, they have only answers. And so they begin to, that connection is stronger than any connection to anything else. And it's real. And I wouldn't tell you this if I wasn't experiencing it myself. Right? To just tell you this and it's like some philosophy or whatever.
Right. No, and I experienced it myself. Like when I was grieving, I think it was the night that my father had a brain aneurysm, and then he was like in coma for a couple of days. And there was one night that we knew that he would pass away. And in that night, I couldn't sleep. And my boyfriend was sleeping already, and I got up, and I just gathered stuff from my own house and my room, and I built an altar and started to put stuff on there, like a picture of my dad, a candle, water. I tied like a scarf around my hips, and I didn't know what I was doing. It was like it followed.
Oh, but you did.
Of course. Yes.
That's the thing.
I was like, on the other hand, it was like for the first time in a very long time that I knew what I was doing. And it was not perceivable with my brain. It was like, what are you doing? And this is weird. But no, I definitely thank you for that.
Yeah.
And I recognize that there's so much beauty around this. Yeah. And that flows through you. It's not something that you can think of.
No, and it requires time. It requires community, or a village, if you will. It requires. The reason it's so difficult in our world today is not a lot of people can hold it. Like, I live my grief out loud. Not a lot of people can hold it, and so I have a certain level of discernment. Right? I'm not going to go down to the middle of the town and lose my shit. They're going to put me in the hospital.
Yeah.
They're going to try to put me on some drugs. Where in my own home, I can completely drop all of that. It's safe here to do that with my friends and my best friends. With my siblings, it's safe to like let that all just drop and be there. And so that is what needs to be rebuilt.
Right.
In my opinion, right? And my opinions are not humble at all. They're informed. They're informed from this really deep place. Yeah. And I'm not.
And I think that is part of for me unsolved grief around that, was that I could see my family kind of, when my father passed away, almost like drop, like break apart, instead of coming closer together and like doing this with each other and holding each other in there. We kind of were like, wow, what's happening here? Because it was also really unexpected. And it almost shook up like all the things that were under the sand, all the cracks that we had like nicely protected. And that started to wave all those things up. And that was definitely one of the add-ons on the grief that my father had passed away. For me, was the grief of missing my relatives there, missing the love of connection in there, the laughter sometimes, and the cries, and like, I so miss that. Yes, definitely.
Totally. That's like grief that festers. It's generational grief, right? Because that is what happens when death happens. The family patterns come. Like, I'm talking like,
right.
They're like there, right? All the dysfunction, all the pain, all the
weird stuff. That
or
is,
for example, I
I
have 2 older siblings. They have a different mother. We share the same father, and my younger brother. And there's a difference in the grief. How my older siblings are walking through this grief, and how my brother and I are walking through the grief is different. And it's fascinating to see the 2 spaces, and how me staying present is beginning to blend them together. Right? It's like, you think you need to go. No, we stay here. We are family. This is a village. You don't get to go. And so bringing that together, like, of course they're sovereign and can make their own choices. I'm not like forcing anything, but I keep weaving that. No, these patterns where you think that you're left out, or these patterns where no. This is the gift of Dad's death. We get to move that out of the way and start something different and new. We get to make beauty out of this. That is our opportunity.
Oh yeah.
And so with that, there's a shit ton of inappropriate laughter and talking shit about my dad. And, my parents divorced. So there's the whole thing going on with my mother that's, I should talk about that. Like, I have to honor some people's,
Yes. But I get it. I had the same thing going on because my father was remarried. So there were differences in like, how do I grieve with my mom?
Yes.
Because it's still her ex. It's the father of her firstborn. And with my stepmom, I also had a connection. She was really close to my dad, the closest in that moment. And we were searching, and it was like really hard sometimes to meet each other in there, or like really hard.
What's really cool for me, because I'm in a consistent mentality. So are my siblings, by the way. Like, I'm watching them, besides the fact that they're back at work full time, which is fucking insane to me. I mean, I'm working too, but my job is so different. There's so much space in what I couldn't the first week, but now this week I'm like, of course, if I can sit here and have this conversation with you, I can work, right? It's just me, and there's grief here. That's just life, and that's a part of it. And am I a bit spacey? In a way, that's what it would be defined as. But the truth is, I am in the seen and unseen at once right now, and it may stay that way. And that's like, so there's constant communion is the best word I can come up with what is unseen, and knowing things that we just know. I think we all just know when we allow grief to enter the experience, when we're not running away from grief, right? When we're not running back into a fucking half life. I'm going to go live a half life so I don't have to feel my grief. You don't understand. If you feel your grief, your light, it's like life becomes beyond technicolor when you allow the grief to roll. Because it's like, the appreciation you begin to have for like everything, and the desire to, it's kind of like you just walk around all the time, because the English language is pretty shitty when it comes to being beautiful. It's like, you just want to walk around and be like, thank you to like every little thing. It makes no rational sense. Thank you to the fibers in my t-shirt. Like, thank you to the things I don't even fucking understand. But like, you just want to bow down in poetry to everything. To all the things, like, and to every human, and that's dangerous. Apparently, and this is what we've been told. This is dangerous. It's dangerous to be this wild and free.
Yes. Which is bizarre, because it is so good.
Yeah. And for me, this is as spiritual as you can get.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there was a while it was kind of like in this place of like the kind of spirituality that's like, follow your bliss and stuff like that. And I'm like, fuck it. It's not about my bliss. It's about like what's coming through me to be shared, that is real. Because what is real is what connects me to you. If I just follow my bliss, how am I connected to you? How is that benefiting your life? Right? How am I giving to the world in this way? And so I just want to do what's real. I want to talk about what's real. I don't want to stop talking about what's real.
Right.
Like,
it's so funny. Like, at the moment, I'm doing the 21 days of sharing wisdom, and I realized over and over again. Yesterday, I made a video where I actually cried, and I had quite a hard time. And I realized this morning, I couldn't put it on that yesterday, that I was like, oh no, this one is maybe better not. And I shared a little bit about it in my next video today, but it was still like there's so much taboo almost around
Well,
the
we can talk
the
about
shadow.
why that is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I'm about to say might sound really controversial. It's still controversial even to me, but I've talked a lot about blame, shame, and guilt a lot. I've done a lot
Mm-hmm.
of like kind of purging out blame, shame, and guilt from my system because
Mm-hmm.
I began to realize emotions are my thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm here for the emotional well-being of myself and anybody else who wants it. And that means emotional maturity
Mm-hmm.
and resiliency and responsibility and
Mm-hmm.
honesty. And the things that keep us from that are very simple. They're the things blame,
Mm-hmm.
shame, guilt, and pity.
Mm-hmm.
These are like the, if you go back to all the native languages that are on the planet today, they don't have words for these things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So these were like introduced when the fear and control of the church actually was introduced into
Mm-hmm.
the world. Mourning itself was put on blast and pretty much smeared off the platter in 599, 600 AD, when the church made an edict that anything pagan, anything,
Right.
you know,
Right.
oh, any dancing, any blah, 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 you know, and they made rules like you have 40 days, you have to wear black shit,
Yeah.
and this is supposed to help you grieve.
Yeah.
But most indigenous cultures have kept something.
Mm-hmm.
Even the
Yeah.
Jewish tradition, right, has kept something that's raw and wild in their processes.
Mm-hmm.
And that blame, shame, and guilt are what, you feel like there's a little bit like, I shouldn't share my tears because what are people going to think?
Mm.
What if I actually what if this hurts someone else?
Yeah.
Yeah, what if that hurt somebody else comes
Yeah.
back and hurts me?
Yeah.
Right?
Or what if I won't be received in there? That's
Exactly.
one of
Yeah.
the things that were for me was like,
Yeah. I won't be
yeah,
seen. I won't be heard. It won't be held.
right. Or the other way around, that you will be held accountable for the words that you say. Well, it's not about the words, it's it's just a purging out of
Mm-hmm.
grief state, and then it's taken way too serious for.
Exactly. And there's, when we drop guilt, which is what I live my life, I would say 99%, 98, whatever, without this shame and guilt thing. But here's the thing. Feeling ashamed of something is an action thing. Oh, I really feel shamed that I pulled my kid's hair. See if some like really deep.
Mm-hmm.
That's just an indication that I don't like myself when I do that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so I can now change my behavior.
Yeah.
That's all it is. But we've
Mm-hmm.
taken it to such an extreme
Right.
to
Yeah.
to use it to control our behavior.
Mm-hmm.
God
Mm-hmm.
forbid we be wild,
Right.
right?
Yeah. And then
God forbid we make a mistake.
right. And for me, that's even like more scary or dangerous when somebody is holding back like a bowl of guilt or control, or like is holding with control, holding it back. Um, because out of that, like manipulation comes. Like it's like a
Here we go.
holding,
Out of that
like
comes violence.
right out of that. It's like holding a ball, like a ball on the water, and at one point you can't hold it anymore, and it's like rah, it comes out
Mm-hmm.
in a distorted way, or
And
it
that
comes out sneaky, like
exactly. So we
manipulation.
use guilt, blame, shame, and pity to hold back our grief.
Mm. Mm.
We've replaced grieving with these four things.
Yeah.
And so when grief is not present, violence happens. So unwept grief, unmetabolized grief turns into violence
Yeah.
every time.
Either to the outside or either to yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
Recognize that.
if you metabolized your grief,
Mm.
there's no need for blame, shame, and guilt of anything, because you may grieve the person that hit the child or pulled the hair
Mm.
while you become somebody new
Mm.
who doesn't do that anymore because they're self-informed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And self-forgiving in that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the clean, healthy emotional response of shame is, oh, I don't like myself when I do that. Okay, let me change that.
Right.
Very simple. It's very innocent.
I love that you share it this way. It's so gorgeous. Yeah.
And guilt is kind of that thing of like, what's healthy guilt? So, blame is when we try to make sense out of chaos. It's your fault. This must be happening because of, well, I want to make sense of chaos,
Yeah.
right?
And I can
it comes
also
out of a sense
see
of
it.
not being safe.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's a protection mechanism, like as almost as if you keep up a mirror and then straight away, like.
And blame came into the picture because we forgot how to take responsibility for our own lives. It's been outsourced.
Yeah.
Right? Instead of like, how do I take responsibility for my own life? So it could be something as simple as like, you raped me. I like to use really intense examples because it brings it really clearly to the forefront. You raped me. And some people are like, oh, you're blaming. I'm like, no, this is a fact. I'm just telling you. This is what happened. You're a fucking piece of shit because you raped me. That's not healthy. But the clarity of like, this is the truth of what's happening. I'm not blaming you. I'm telling the truth. Right? Or when you speak to me in that tone of voice, I feel really hurt.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, this is honest. I take full responsibility for my experience and I explain what's happening for me.
Right.
I don't need that.
And the funny thing is though that it doesn't mean that you cannot have that anger, like you fucking
of course you can.
me.
Yeah.
But it's like, how do you give space to that?
Well, I created my life a vomit bucket. So I have people in my life. I also do sessions like this where the vomit bucket is where I can go and fucking complain and vomit and puke. And the person listening is literally just a vessel. They're not judging who I'm talking about.
Right.
They're not trying to make it right or fix it.
Yeah.
Same thing when the person comes to me. Okay, here we're going to open the vomit bucket. And when you're done, it's done. Like, we will never speak of it again. It's finished.
Yeah. And so there's no hang-ups around that. And it gives
and these things are the things you shouldn't say to like your spouse because it would break the relationship.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But you still have that place where you can go and be like, okay. And most often what happens when we're given that space is we come back to our truth really quickly, like our own inner realness.
Right.
Real? Oh, fuck. I love them and it hurt me and I felt like they weren't listening. Okay. Now I know it's real. Now I can go have a conversation that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Like, I don't know if you heard of her, Mama Regina.
I've heard of it. Like schools.
Yeah. She calls it swamping. I like it. Like, which nice. And it's, I love it. It's such a good tool to keep yourself literally and like physically and emotionally clean.
Because if you listen, let's say somebody comes to you and they're vomit bucketing. If you listen, you recognize, oh, that's funny. Like you don't take it seriously, right? And oftentimes, like, and I don't appreciate it either when people just come at me and vomit on me, right? Like there's got to be an agreement.
Yeah.
Like this is what we're doing now.
Exactly.
But when we listen, we can tell that somebody's hurting and just needs to say some things and that it's really not about us and it's not personal. We just need to, but we don't have any clarity and communication around it normally. And so somebody will come and vomit without permission, if you will, or without a communication. And we're like, we feel like we have to now defend ourselves from them, which we don't. The only reason we feel we have to defend ourselves is because I'm wrong. I'm bad. There's something I need to fix.
Right.
Without blame, shame, and guilt, you don't have the sense of I'm not worthy.
Right. Yeah, and I love what you say, like that it's good to have a little bit of a structure around like coming at somebody. And I had this like I call it a privilege. I really feel it as a privilege or I feel honored by it that I have this presence in my life, that I have a group of friends around me who I can call and say, hey, I need to vent something. Do you have like a couple of minutes? Can we set a timer and just blah? And a lot of times they will say, oh yeah, can I do that too? I was like, yes, bring it on. So we exchange. And it's so good. It's so easy actually. And I did it this morning. I felt like really off. And my first reaction was like, oh, this is my fault. I feel like the whole spectrum of the bad things. And I was like, no, I should not be in this place. If I'm happy or if I'm like centered, then this is not the place. This is not that place.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, oh, I want to go back there. I'm okay with the grief, but I'm not in that place where I'm being attacked by my own thoughts.
Right.
So I went up to a friend and I said, do you have and I asked for 3 minutes. That was all. Like 3 minutes of space holding. Like, do you have time to hold space for me?
Yeah.
And it's so simple.
Yeah, it really is. And I think it's funny, like there's just a notice, like, oh, I asked for 3 minutes. You can ask for 30.
Yes.
Like this thing, like
right.
I have to hurry up and hurry up and feel the shit.
Right. But it's also the idea that it will take a long time.
Yeah, it won't. Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't have to. No, it is about the quality you bring to it and the intensity you bring.
Yeah, but I want to open that a little bit. We need to take the time. The time to take is important. Like we're trying to box everything into like, let's get this over with quick.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, why don't we just take the time? Just take the time back. The time that has kind of been stolen from us. And it's like, just take the time back. That this may take a long time. This may take a while.
That's true. Yeah.
I don't, and I can take up as much space as I need. And the trust that I take up this much. I live in a family. We're 6 people in the house. I take up a lot of space right now in this house. Everybody's having to really pick up some pieces because I can't hold it all together.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Because, next month it might be somebody else.
Right.
It's going to shift. It's going to change. And it's okay that this takes up all the space right now.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
And that doesn't mean like my daughter goes through her things and there will be like a pocket that opens up. I have space. Let's do that. I can be there for you. And then that pocket, and now I need to take the space again. And I need to take the time. And I need to be with me. Or how soft, even the softness that comes with grief, I think is also something people don't expect. It's like, time stops so I'm cuddling my kids more. I'm speaking a lot less and just letting them come into me. And there's more of that becomes available when it's okay to slow down.
Yeah, I recognize that. Thank you for reminding me. Yeah.
Because this whole thing that we gotta hurry up is so not true. And that's what I get too. Like every time that enters, like, okay, when are we gonna be done now? My mind. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what it's gonna be like to get out of bed tomorrow morning. And I think that's also what grief brings. This visceral understanding that there's no control here. I don't get to decide, okay, grief is over. Let's just move on. Let me change my state. Because it's in my nervous system. Like from a side, it's in my brain. This is it's on every level, the seen and the unseen. This is working on my behalf.
Nice.
On my behalf. For all of us. And the sharing has to happen. So, like always, I'll go first. And I know I'm not the only one. I know there's many people out there. But, when I started to share, I wrote to a friend. I said, hey, I don't have the capacity right now, but can you just grab all of my Facebook posts and put them in a Google document for me? Because I have a feeling it's important, but I don't know why.
Beautiful.
And so she's just putting them all, like just squishing them all into I don't know where I haven't looked at it, but just because I knew that like I don't have the capacity for that.
No. But
I know that it's something that is very important to whatever I'm here to do for my life's work. And I didn't know. Like, I didn't know it was going to affect people the way that it did. I had no clue people were going to burst into, none. It was just like, if I share everything, I'm going to share this too. It only makes sense.
Yeah, I love it. Keep on sharing. I'm looking forward to what's next. Yeah. Yeah, and for people who don't know you, this is Shanti. And I would say, what is your name on Facebook?
Shanti Zimmermann.
Okay, yeah, so people can find you.
Yep.
Also make a only a sound podcast of this, so so they know.
Yeah, but it's like the invitation too is just grief was what connects us. It's what brings us together. And I have had inherent in the grief is respect and honor for other people.
Beautiful.
And so of all the sharings I've ever done, it's the first one where there's not been a single, like, even a blip of disrespect. There's been a few moments of immaturity from people, just not knowing what to do with their own sense of hopelessness, helplessness. That what do I do? Like, and I tell people, like, I don't know what to say. I'm like, it's okay. Nobody knows what to say.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what to
Like
say.
that one.
Like, this is
Yeah.
empty space. We don't know what to say other than,
Yeah.
you know, and I'm sorry is kind of weird. Like, why would we say that? It's just like, I love you is kind of the best thing. It's I love you and I'm with you and I feel with you.
Yeah. Exactly. That's the thing. Like,
Yeah.
being with the other in here. That's,
And in the very beginning, the worst thing people were doing were saying, like, and this wasn't by fault, like, I'm not blaming them, but it was, what was really hard for me was like, how can I support you? I'm like, fuck if I know. I have no idea. Like, I don't even know what time it is ever.
Yeah.
You know, like, your whole world is so ripped that you have no idea
Right.
how to be supported, right? And
Right.
I have a lot of things in hindsight that I would say, you know, like meals, like you would when somebody has a baby, like meals or household support or babysitting support or things like that could be really the real things, right? And then just loving, hey, I'm here, I love you, thank you for sharing.
Thank you for sharing. It's really beautiful.
Thank you.
Right.
Okay.
Bye.